Bray Wyatt kicks off the show and cuts a promo about how all the people in the Fatal 5-Way last night will all be punished and that they are all guilty. Then Reigns comes out and says some shit, and he uppercuts Wyatt like the heel he is, and they start the match. The match was boring and slow to me. The finish is Reigns hitting his punch and weak looking spear. Alexa Bliss is in Kurt Angle's office and tells him that she's going to do an Alexa Bliss This Is My Life segment on this week's Raw, but Kurt tells her it's a terrible idea and says that This Is Your Life segment last week was one of the worst on Raw. He brings up that Alexa promised a title match to Nia Jax after she was done with Bayley, and makes Alexa vs Nia for the title tonight. Elias Sampson plays a song in the middle of the ring again for the crowd, and he gets about a minute through the song before Jon Moxley interrupts him and comes out. By the way, there was a Jon Moxley sign in the crowd. I thought that was pretty funny. He tells Sampson to hang on and that he wants to tell him something real quick, and then just bashes him and throws him outside and over a barricade. He says he wants a rematch for the IC title he lost last night, which by the way ended how I said it would, with Maurice just hitting the Miz for the win, except they didn't do it at the start of the match, which would have made more sense. Anyway, Miz appears on the Titantron and tells Ambrose no go for the title match. He's having a celebration tonight. Then Elias decks the Miz from behind and hits him with his finish, which I am now calling the plectrum. Backstage, Ambrose tells Angle he wants the title shot, and Angle tells him to go home. Samoa Joe comes out and says he doesn't fear Lesnar and that he wants his schedule and championship, and he even wants Paul Heyman as his advocate, so that he has someone to make all of his deals and do things for him like he does for Brock. Then Paul comes out and says it's his job to make sure that at Great Balls of Fire, Brock Lesnar is Joe's worst case scenario, and that he wanted Brock Lesnar and now he has Brock Lesnar. Heyman then goes to leave and Joe stops him and backs him up into a corner and tells him something bad is going to happen, that he's going to wrap his arm around his throat. He says, I want you to take this message to Brock Lesnar. He pulls Heyman forwards and locks on the coquina clutch and chokes him out. Backstage, Angle goes up to Joe and says, what's wrong with you? And Joe says he will take out anyone who gets in the way of him. And they sort of have a bit of a stare, and he asks Kurt if he's in his way. Then Rollins comes along and gets in Joe's face and says he's beaten Joe before and he'll do it again tonight. Angle books the match. Sheamus and Cesaro had a match against Rhino and Heath Slater. It almost went for 2 minutes. It was a bit of a squash. The finish was Sheamus hitting his bro kick on Slater. Cesaro and Sheamus cut a promo after the match and said they don't set the bar, they are the bar. Backstage, TJ Perkins tells Neville he's been helping him with Austin Aries for 2 months and pretty much says he wants a title shot. Neville tells him he'll speak to Kurt Angle. TJ Perkins versed Mustafa Ali in a 2-minute 40-second match. TJ Perkins won with his sort of GTS finish, but instead of coming down on the knee, he kicks them in the face. Neville comes out as Perkins is at the top of the ramp and tells him he has some unfortunate news. Perkins says, let's go talk to Kurt Angle now, and starts to walk away. Neville drops Perkins from behind and he lost his title somewhere on the ramp. He walked off without it. He must have blended in with the floor because everything's purple. Goldust cut another one of his Goldust promos. Hopefully when he has a match he comes out with his hairpiece. It's not too much to ask for. It's not like I'm asking for Terry Runnels to smoke a cigar and be his valet again. I just want him to wear his hairpiece. Backstage, Alexa Bliss tells Dana Brooke and Mickie James that they should be angry that Nia just gets a title shot and tries to convince them to help her tonight. They tell her it's her problem, but they will watch from ringside. Kurt is stopped by some interviewer guy and he asks him what's going on as he's been worried about something on his phone this weekend last. Kurt says it's a private matter and leaves the building, but as the door is about to shut, Ambrose holds it open from the outside and comes back in. Kalisto had a match with Titus O'Neil that went for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Kalisto got the win by pulling Titus's tights during the pin. Big Cass is found laid out backstage this week. I guess this is so we think it wasn't Cass that jumped Enzo. Enzo had to find a new partner to verse Gallows and Anderson, and his partner was the Big Show. Enzo was doing his usual bits and joking around while Show looked like he was about to knock him out. Then he got into it too and did the whole soft bit with Enzo. The match went for 1 minute 40 seconds. The finish was Big Show throwing Enzo onto Carl Anderson for the pin. Time for the Miz's celebration. There's balloons, champagne and some guy in a bear costume holding a congratulations sign. The Miz makes a toast saying, may the world never know a time where I'm not the Intercontinental Champion. He toasts his wife Maurice and says, look at everything you got, the champagne, the balloons and the bear. And Maurice says she didn't get the bear. And Miz says I didn't get the bear. At this point everyone's thinking it's Ambrose, so the Miz throws his champagne at the bear and rushes him. And he hits him with his finish, the Shipbuster 2000. And when he pulled the head off of the costume, it's not Ambrose. Then a giant gift-wrapped box is wheeled down the ramp, and The Miz says there could be anything in this box and grabs a chair and starts hitting the box with it. Then he tackles the box and elbow drops it. Maurice is yelling at him to stop and says it's a gift from her. He pulls out the top of a grandfather clock and says sorry, and Maurice tells him it's timeless just like you. Then she says you ruined it and throws the mic at him and does a funny run in her heels up the ramp. The Miz gets in the ring angry and asks Ambrose to show himself, and Ambrose was behind the Miz disguised as a cameraman. The Miz turns around into a Dirty Deeds. Ambrose drinks some champagne and walks off. R-Truth cut his own knockoff of Goldust's promo. It was weird and I hope there aren't any more. Nia Jax vs Alexa Bliss for the title was a few minutes into the match when Alexa rolled out and went over to Dana and Mickey. They were taunting her, asking her what happened, and Alexa stood up and pushed both of them. Then they punched her, resulting in a DQ. Nia tried to grab Bliss after the match, but she escaped up the ramp, so Nia turned around and dropped Mickey and Dana. Rollins and Joe had a good main event match. I think it was the only actual match on the show, as Rollins was going to the top rope for a frog splash. The lights went out and the Wyatt thing happened. When the lights came back on, Wyatt wasn't in the ring, and Joe put Rollins in the coquina clutch and choked him out for the win. Brock is going to be on next week's show, and it's the first time appearing on Raw since Raw After Mania. What a shit champion. He'll probably just drop Joe or something shit, I don't know. Anyway, Raw goes off the air with Joe looking over Rollins' unconscious body. This Raw felt like the entire show was segments apart from the main event match. That's probably because it was. Well, see you next week for the next Rush Raw review.